I remember as a young boy being making a visit with my parents to the orphanage that is now the Children's Center, the Chambliss Center for Children. It is it's near the intersection between Brainerd Road and Germantown Road behind the Walgreens. I had been there as a boy. I don't remember much, and I remember vaguely the boy we had at our house for just a few days. But there is continuing work in Chattanooga among children who are in distress or whose families are in distress, and that work is being brought forth by the Chambliss Center in a broadening set of laborers across the county. We have here in the studio Leslie Berryhill. She is the spokeswoman for Chambliss. She and her husband Shane have a son, age 8. They live in Appleton. And Leslie, I'd like to know more about the operation of this operation, which is a charity that has in its care about 650 children. That is a lot of children for an organization that's not itself a family, an organization to care for. Tell my listener what you're doing at Chambliss.
Okay, well, just to give a little bit of background, we are 145 years old this year. So, like you said, we started back in 1872 by some women from 5 local churches. There were some orphaned girls living downtown, pretty much orphaned from the yellow fever epidemic, and they were sleeping above a saloon in downtown Chattanooga. And these ladies with churches did not think that was quite appropriate, so they started renting houses for these orphaned girls to live in. Then quickly started taking boys and really just kept moving to bigger and bigger houses. We built the Vine Street Orphans Home on what's now part of UTC's campus in 1911. And then in 1939, moved out to our current campus in Brainerd. We operated as an orphanage on this 17-acre campus, 90,000 square foot building built with WPA labor in 1939. We operated as an orphanage until the 50s when the foster care system started coming about and the orphanage system kind of went away in the United States. And at that time, we commissioned a study in the community and found that there was a big need. We were heavily industrial at the time. Found there was a big need for second and third shift workers. So those workers needed childcare. And so we started what at the time was called Care Around the Clock. It did not exist. There was not a license for it. We had a great board member who had connections in Nashville. She drove up and got us a license to operate on a 24-hour basis as a childcare facility until the state kind of caught up with us on the regulations, because there are a lot of regulations when it comes to childcare. And so we have been operating that program since. The 24-hour childcare means that these children do have families, but their families may be working second or third shift, and they need care throughout that time. We have an early childhood education program. So the children who are preschool age are there in that program getting ready for kindergarten. 100% of our kids leave us ready for kindergarten. And then school age children up to 12 years old. We serve 6 weeks up to 12 years old. Come before and after school. They come spring break, fall break. If it snows, we're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We have a great summer camp that those kids come to. And we are just taking care of kids while their parents are in school or at work, because they are required to be working or in school.
Well, talk a little bit about the interest in intact families and the temptation by the state to intervene with families and to break up families for ostensibly the benefit of the children. Well,
our main goal is to keep children with their families. 82% of the families that we serve are living at or below the poverty level, and about 80% are single parent households, mostly single moms, but we do have some single dads. The goal of our agency is to provide this service of childcare so that those parents can keep their children, because poverty, along with single parent household, that's hard. And so we are providing that childcare service for them. Now, we do manage 5 offsite childcare centers as well, and we have classrooms in 12 Hamilton County schools where we take care of the teachers of the children of the teachers. That was a partnership we formed with Hamilton County Department of Education to retain great teachers in the system. So that's kind of where that 650-ish number comes in.
Well, among teachers' children, how many are served every day?
Oh my, it depends on the school site. So we have 12 sites. They can have up to 12 children in each site. That's what the license for that kind of program goes up to. Some do, some don't have all 12, but it's all a cost plus for us. We get about 10% over the cost. It's not a money-making thing for us at all. It's really a partnership with the school system to retain great teachers in the program. But now, talking about the state and removing children, that gets more into our residential program. So in our residential program, we recruit and train foster families, and we facilitate adoptions. So those children have been removed from their homes by the state because of abuse, neglect, abandonment, or they've come through the juvenile court system. We operate an 8-bed group home on our main campus. That's the most kids you can have at one address. So we have 8 teenage boys that live on our main campus. And then the rest of our kids, we have a capacity of 30. So the other 22 are out in foster homes, and that's mainly sibling groups and our girls.
Is that 30 a pretty steady number, Leslie Berryhill?
That's the max that we have, because we have 3 counselors, case managers, and we don't want them to have more than 10 children on their caseload, because we like to give the foster families a lot of attention, be there for them. And once you get beyond 10 children on a caseload, it can get harder to manage that. So we really like to be hands-on with them. If we were to really grow our foster homes, which is what we want to do, that's a huge need in this area. I mean, we have about 1,000 kids in state custody in Hamilton and the surrounding counties. That's in the Tennessee Valley. That's a lot of children that need loving homes. And these are kids who have been in traumatic situations. And so we are very cautious, very careful about the quality of the foster homes that we get and the people that we get to take care of these children. So yeah, we don't want to load our case managers too much.
Well, some foster children in the care of the state have being their traumatic situations. I read of one young woman who had been in more than 30 foster homes. Mm-hmm. And so foster care itself can be very difficult as well.
It can. You only hear the negative stories in media. So there are hundreds of thousands of children in the United States in foster care, and there are a lot of great stories. There's actually some things you can follow on social media that tell the good stories. But yeah, there's negative about a lot, but there's a lot of negative situations these kids are living in. So our goal is to have the best foster homes that we can have and to take care of the kids that we can take care of. We'd love to increase the number of foster homes and increase our case managers and be able to help more children, because right now we take less than 10% of the calls we get from the state. So we contract with the state. And I was kind of explaining a little bit earlier. The state has their own foster homes. They have about 400, DCS, as many people have heard, Department of Children's Services. And then they contract with local agencies like ours. There's about 6 other agencies like us here. If DCS can't place a child or children in one of their foster homes, they start making the calls to the contract agencies. And we mainly get calls for sibling groups and older youth. So if we can't take those children, if we don't have the home for them, then they call on to the next agency. And so at this point, we can only take less than 10% of the calls we get from the state.
One of your programs is called Pro
Bono.
Pro Bono. What is that? That's a Latin phrase. What does that mean? And what's involved in that program?
Low cost child care, or at low cost. Pro Bono is actually how I got introduced to Chambliss Center for Children. I was on the board there. It's an independent child care facility that had its own separate board of directors. All of our offsites do. Chambliss just manages them. I was the board president for many years, and then decided to come on board at Chambliss because this agency has my heart. But Pro Bono is actually the oldest child care agency in Chattanooga. Daycare. Chambliss is one of the oldest social service agencies here, but we started as an orphanage. Pro Bono is 125 years old, last year, I think. So they are the oldest daycare, and they were there to serve the factories in Chattanooga. They're on Dodds Avenue.
And that program is licensed for 66 children?
Yes.
Well, now let me ask about the funding, Leslie Berryhill. This is David Tulis. We do thank you for tuning in. We're live on Facebook at Nooga Radio and live also on YouTube at Hot News Talk Radio. And Leslie is the spokeswoman for Chambliss Center for Children, and she's been there for 3 years. Long work in this field. Wanted to ask about let's see, some of your other programs. You have one at the volunteer school that has license for 54 children. Again, these seem like very large numbers of children to be sort of delegated to an agency. So what is the volunteer school about?
Volunteer Community Preschool is on North Market Street, and it's another child care facility. I don't know exactly how old they are, but all of our off-site child care facilities have been around for a long time, mainly serving the similar population that we are. They are, and we, along with these other off-sites, are on a sliding fee scale. So we are based on the parents' income. But again, they're mainly serving people at or below the poverty level. We've got Maurice Kirby, which is on the campus of Howard High School. Newton Center for Children is in the College Hill Courts. And then we have Children's Academy, which is in the Highland Park area.
Now, let me ask about the jurisdiction in which you operate. You're a private organization, and you have 30 children who are in state custody directly in the foster care program. So for those children, there is parens patri, which means the father, the state as the father, right? Under state jurisdiction. Are the other children, of which there are more than 600, are they in private jurisdiction? Or, in other words, are they under their parents' care and under their parents' authority, or are they somehow also under the state in loco parentis, which means in place of the parent?
No,
what is the jurisdiction?
They are all with their families. Now, we do have children that are in our child care programs that may be living in foster homes, but they could be one of our foster homes, or they could be a foster home with another agency, because the foster parents need child care because they have to go to work. So, but no, the majority of the children that we are serving are with their parents. Their parents just their mom may be a waitress, and she doesn't get off till 11 o'clock at night. So her child has childcare until the mom gets off.
So you mentioned that about 80% of the people in the Chambliss, well, in one part or the other of the Chambliss Center are poor, and about 80% are single moms or dads. Would you say divorce is a driving factor in demand for your services at Chambliss Center? Divorce, the need for a second job if it's a couple?
Yes. The need for it's just single parents, whether it's divorce or maybe they weren't married when they had their children. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I'm married and I have a son, and I've paid private child care, and it is a struggle.
He's 8 years old.
He is 8 now, and he's in public school, and I don't have to pay private child care anymore. But it's hard, and I have the support of my husband. So, for single parents, especially if they're having to work more than one job, or maybe they're in school and working part-time trying to make a better life. That's what we're striving for, is to be able to provide them this aspect of safety, knowing their child that's the most important thing to you. So knowing that your child is safe, being cared for, being educated, getting ready for school, so that you can go do the things you need to do to provide a better life for you and your family. That's our goal.
You have a $6 million budget at Chambliss Center, and you get some USDA reimbursement. You have some, you indicated some state-assisted child care fees that are paid to your organization. Overall, how much would you say is privately funded through churches and private donors and other charities, and how much comes from either Uncle Sam or Nashville or county government? Okay,
well, I don't know the exact answer. I'm going to say a third is government. We do have, and that $6.5 million budget is counting our offsite child care centers as well, which do remain, like I said, independent. They just have a management contract with us, but we then handle their finances for them. We do get some state-assisted certificates. So parents that are working or in school, but their income just isn't high enough to be able to afford childcare, or they get some kind of assistance with that. And then they usually have a copay that they have to pay part of it. But the fees that we do get for childcare really only cover about 25% of the cost that it actually takes us to care for these children. So we have to raise about $600,000 a year through donations. Speaking of, tomorrow's Giving Tuesday. So if everybody's out there listening to the radio, shopping on Cyber Monday, save a few dollars and give to a great charity tomorrow on Giving Tuesday.
And say something more about that. Leslie Berryhill, say more about that.
On Giving Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. So Giving Tuesday is a global campaign. It started a few years ago. We've really only been pushing it about the last 3 years or so here in Chattanooga. But everybody knows Black Friday, Small Business Saturday. Of course, today is Cyber Monday, getting some great deals. Tuesday after Thanksgiving is Giving Tuesday. You're supposed to give to your favorite charity. So give back on that Tuesday. So there's a big campaign. You can follow us on Facebook. We're doing the ABCs of Chambliss Center for Children tomorrow. But, most people have been touched by some kind of nonprofit in their life. So take tomorrow to give a little bit back.
How do you, Leslie Berryhill of Chambliss Center for Children, and how does your organization view the human trafficking story? We've heard a lot about that. There's a lot of private human trafficking. There are children trafficked for sexual purposes, for labor. How have you seen that story from your work as spokeswoman with your group?
Well, we've had children come into our custody because of trafficking or pornography. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. There are so many reasons that children come in to state care, and I know a lot of people look at that as it could be a negative. But if you've got a mom who's super glued her son's eyes shut because as a punishment, that child does not need to be living with that mom. And human trafficking, child sex trafficking, it's definitely a problem, and we have gotten children in from that.
And do you have any sense of caution, Leslie Berryhill, that the state itself might be involved in child trafficking of children?
Do I think the state is involved in that? No, I don't.
Well, the reason I ask, there is a large area of the press that covers state abuse of families and individuals, children who are taken from their parents because the mom says, "Well, I'm not going to have a vaccination," or I'm going to get a second opinion for a doctor's recommendation for surgery or care, and or we're living in poverty in many cases around the country. Leslie, there's a lack of understanding between the difference between poverty and neglect. Right. And the child worker in the state agency says, well, this child is being neglected. And simply the problem is that the parent or the parents are poor. And out of Texas, there was a story recently of a family living in a storage unit with 5 or 6 children. All of them were seized by the state until publicity finally brought back the children to the family. And it wasn't neglect, it was just poverty. And I think and the suggestion is in this reporting that the state has an interest, because it receives federal funding, to create a demand for people and a seizure mentality against families on behalf of the state and its contractors.
Well, I mean, I haven't witnessed anything like that within our agency. And when I hear about families living in a storage unit, I mean, did they have running water? I mean,
probably not.
Okay. So, I mean, you do have to look at the welfare of a child. We've had children come into care that were living on a bus. I mean, we are in Appalachia. I mean, we have had kids that, were living on a school bus, no running water. And
does that mean there's neglect taking place?
That does. I mean, if you can't take care of your children, but let me say this, our main goal, and the main goal of, I would hope, any child placing agency is reunification with the family. So that may mean that we take custody, or that the state takes custody of a child for a certain amount of time while their parents get their stuff together and get a better situation for them and their families. And it doesn't always have to come down to state custody. I would say that when you hear cases like that, there's probably something deeper that's not getting reported. Because if a family member is willing to take children, they don't even necessarily have to go into state custody. But there's either something more going on. I don't know of anyone who just wants to go in and take children.
You're not aware of, in Hamilton County, you're not aware, Leslie Berryhill, of the state confusing poverty and neglect. In all the cases you're aware of, that there is a correct distinction by the state worker that these poor people are neglecting their children, not just poor, and that the seizure of those children, of whom there are maybe 30 in your care, are correct, just, and true.
Not in the stories that I've heard with Chambliss Center for Children and the files that we have on children. I do marketing and communications for the agency. I am not a direct staff worker with the children in the residential program. So my heart can't take some of the stories that I hear that have happened to these kids. I ask questions and I get to a certain point where I stop. I don't want to know every single detail. The ones that I've heard are heartbreaking. And anyway, it's tough.
So
it's
now, we're talking with Leslie Berryhill now. What can my listener do tomorrow to support the work of your center, Chambliss Center, tomorrow on Giving Tuesday? Giving Tuesday. Go to our website or chamblisscenter.org. Go to our Facebook page and follow us to learn the ABCs of Chambliss Center for Children. Leslie Berryhill, thank you so much. Thank you. This is David Tulis. We're arguing for local economy and the free markets in Chattanooga and beyond. Love your neighbor, buy local is our mantra. Near is better than far, small than big, and simple than complex. And down the footnotes in Helvetica type, sans serif, of course. Personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. Like us on Facebook, brought to you by Nooganomics.com, Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. And now some very important announcements.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4.